Welcome to the 1st of September. Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you had a safe and enjoyable holiday and enjoy the independence celebrations throughout Trinidad and Tobago as we celebrated 61 years as an independent nation. Now, when we speak about independence, very few things come to mind. More prominently, you think about democracy. You think about the fact that we've separated ourselves from colonial rule. But not often, and I phrased it that way in particular, not often, some thought comes to it, but not often do we speak about leadership. And the reason being is because we do not necessarily associate the leadership here in TNT with an independent state. We just think it's just a motion from the old colonial rule to now. But anyway, the point is, here in TNT, discussions surrounding leadership, the quality of leadership, and what good leadership versus bad leadership has, well, that is a discussion that QRC actually put forward when they had their Leadership Transformative Bootcamp. Well, this morning I'm joined by the Secretary of the Queen's Royal College All Boys Association, Mr. Rudolph Hanamji. He's with us via Zoom. Hello, sir, and I see that you're outside your alma mater this morning.
Good morning, Keelan. Yes, she is always with me. Most times right behind, reminding me, as you said, how important leadership is and that journey that we all must embark upon to make a better Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, this was a 7-day boot camp. It actually, it just ended not too long ago. It was from August 20th to 26th.
Yes.
But what exactly was the core thinking or the conceptualization behind this particular boot camp? What was the purpose as well as the goals that were hoped to achieve?
That question is, as you open the segment, one that many in our country have been asking. What is the importance of discussing and creating spaces where new leaders can emerge? And that is truly the core behind what drove the Old Boys Association to work with many partners to implement this training, this boot camp. I mean, you mentioned, of course, that Trinidad and Tobago celebrated 61 years yesterday. But Queen's Royal College, of course, has been a part and parcel of Trinidad's history for over 160 years. And we have been churning out leaders. Some may or may not know, because today you meet younger people who unfortunately don't know, not all, but some don't know our history. But of course, our first Prime Minister, President, and opposition leader all came from Queen's Royal College. So Dr. Brian Harry, who's an old boy, along with the members of the PTA, other old boys, and the association, and of course with the full endorsement of the college under the principalship of Mr. Simon, came together last year, Keelan, and we said it is time that Queen's Royal College retain and regain its position as a pool, a source outlet for leadership in Trinidad and Tobago, and real leadership, not what passes for leadership. We wanted young men to engage with some of us who have certain experiences and perspectives, to be able to ask questions and to get advice about professional conduct, service in the public sector, corporate development, and soft skills such as neurodiversity, ethics, leadership, so that they, as they enter the university tract, can start thinking about their true place as leaders in the next generation of Trinidad and Tobago.
I think that was a key phrase of which you utilized, and that is not what passes for leadership, but what real leadership is. And you focused a lot on the young people. Thing is, the young people will look up to their leaders to, I suppose, for vision, for hope, even to really find what the future is. But in the instance of the boot camp, how do you empower young people or forge a path or help them forge their own path towards good leadership?
It starts with inclusion and conversation. I mean, we all remember what it was like to be in your teenage years, always thinking ahead of yourself. The old people would say, don't, get out of your shoes. Don't kick off the starting blocks too soon, because young people, we always know more. We always think we know more. But oftentimes that is met with resistance, where older people, elders in society, may take a more conventional approach and say, well, it's not your time yet. Do as I say, maybe not always as I do, because I know better. At QRC, I must tell you that if you ask any of us, the way that we were encouraged to grow our minds and to envision our own perspectives and opinions was very different. The teachers at the time, and up to today, I would like to believe, really wanted us to have independent thought. We would have debates in the classrooms about what was written in the textbooks, especially in more of the subjective fields. I myself, I studied history, for example, and I excelled at it in the college. And I remember having debates with Mr. Simon and other history teachers about, is this really our history? Is what we are, is this what is written about us from an outside perspective, truly capturing who we are and our story? So that is how you empower young people. You have to have conversations with them. You have to listen a lot. So even though we had, of course, our agenda and our program planned, during the sessions, even persons like Mr. Wendell Motley, a national award winner who helped to create this nation himself, he did a lot more listening and engaging and answering questions, because younger generations, Keelan, have a lot more access to information than we ever did at their age. They do see the world differently. And what we have to try and do is identify the commonalities. And when we understand where they are approaching it from, the older ones, our role really is, as they say, cut some track for Guti to run. And they will run, they will excel. They just need our support and facilitation. And quite frankly, sometimes we can learn more from them than they might learn from us.
Mm-hmm. Well, in recognizing who a good leader is, in recognizing leadership traits, you often look at their approach to things, their emotional approach to things. Even more so in assessing leadership, you look at body language, you look at body structure. Now, it's always easy to speak more so to the physical aspect of it. This is how you should shake a hand, for example, this is how you should pose. But in appealing to the emotional and especially the emotional and the mental aspects of good leadership, is that something that was easy to achieve?
I must say that I was very happy to see that we are working with well-prepared canvases. Many of the young people are obviously products of excellent parenting, and as I said, the tutelage at the college. You are seeing that despite the sometimes generalized belief that you hear people say things like young people are all going astray, we've lost the young to whatever. I push back on that. There will always be exceptions, but I do think for the most part that you're starting with a strong base, and from there you can build. So, for example, you spoke about the softer side of things. I must say that the young people, and this year I want to add that we expanded the program. It was not only for the young boys of the college, but they also invited young girls from some of the sister schools in the neighborhood to participate. And the plan is to, of course, expand further next year. So all of them, the boys and girls, were very respectful. They were inquisitive. Some of them, of course, a little more bold than others. But all in all, they came there with a purpose. They wanted to learn what they didn't know. They wanted to ask questions that maybe their teachers could not answer for them, or even their parents. And when we dealt with things like ethics, for example, I must say that they were quick study. They understood the concepts because, of course, the mental preparedness and the emotional intelligence of a leader is critical. And we see that lacking a lot in today's leadership class, especially in the public sector. But these young people got it. They want to live like that. They want to, I guess it's idealism at play, right? Again, I go back to when we were all younger. We don't see the world in the jaded manner that sometimes older people do. So, Keelan, we do have a strong foundation. It's there like diamonds in the rough. And again, we, the older ones, have to take up the responsibility of coaching and being available to them and encouraging good practices. And when they have to make very tough decisions, as we all do in life, we have to be there to support them, because leading a good, ethical, and vision centered existence is not always easy in the world, as we all know. But we have to support each other.
What was the rubric for executing this boot camp in particular? Because the term boot camp was actually specified even in the sheet that was released. What was the rubric?
So, interestingly, you had to, of course, been a student that demonstrated to your parents and the college that you were already in a frame mind, a mind space that a frame of mind, sorry, in a mind space that you wanted or had potential to be a leader in society. So you tend to start with which students have taken up leadership roles within their various schools, who are people that have already started to demonstrate the capacity to engage with others, to represent for their peers, and again, need that assistance in honing some of those skills. Once you have filtered and they have entered the program, each day there are practical exercises as well as, very important, a journaling process. So from day one to even a few days after the program, they are provided with journals in which they must enter their thoughts and reflections. And they must also identify a project that they can execute and coordinate with the support of other students that would bring a benefit to the life of the college, or, as I said, their respective school. And of course, they would take that with them into their university career. So those are some of the main tenets of how we executed the program. The assessment for accepting persons that applied, and how they were going to be assessed throughout the period based upon their reflections and the projects that they would have chosen and eventually executed with the college.
Mr. Hanamji, I took a look, I perused through the sheet that was
Yes.
publicized, but and I'm also taking a look at those who were featured speakers who contributed and co-facilitated. You mentioned Wendell Motley, yourself, Dr. Heidi Grant, Mr. J. Prasad, Mr. Brandon Lyons, and Mr. Hiran Shukla. But what I am curious to know is, in this entire conversation, how does one, given the workshop and the co-facilitators, how do you separate good leadership from old leadership?
Well, again, it's one of those tropes where old and new are sometimes used as being mutually exclusive. And I will tell you, in my workplace, my work experience of over 20 years, I happen to be a millennial, an older millennial. So I fall somewhere in the middle of the X's and the Z's. And it has been my experience, Keelan, that old and new must coexist. And it sounds a bit oxymoronic, However, there are certain fundamentals, not just of leadership, but life skills in general, that young people need to and must adopt from older persons. Unfortunately, as I intimated earlier, what has happened in our society is that a number of persons, not all older persons, but oftentimes too many, become gatekeepers, and their style, their approach to doing things becomes a bit dated overall with changing dynamics of society. And therefore, bad leaders, bad old leaders, or ineffective old leaders are really those who, one, do not allow themselves to adapt over time, and secondly, don't understand when it is time to, one, prepare a succession plan for themselves, and secondly, exit stage left. Quite frankly, there needs to be a changing of the guards, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in many spaces across the world. And I think that is why, in certain sectors like technology, for example, you always see that younger people are given space so that they can build upon what has come before. So I am very careful. I myself have been mentored by some of the persons that you called. Uh, I have wonderful experiences with my grandparents, for example. So I have taken from older people, and in, as I said, in my work life, from former CEOs and board directors, people who were twice my age sometimes. I have taken good from them. I have filtered it. I have seen what is still adaptable and relevant, and I've made my own way. And they, in turn, have mentored me. I remember a former CEO, Mrs. King, always told us her role is to prepare us as a management team to replace her, because other than that, she has nowhere to go. She will always be the person to solve all the problems, and we would never be in a position to take on that responsibility. So it's really about deciphering what is relevant and taking both hands to clap, Keelan, where young people step up, they learn, they empower themselves sometimes, because you can't wait for somebody to empower you. But also on the other side, for older people to facilitate, enable, and encourage young people to do just that: step up, take up responsibility, and we have to be there to coach them along the way.
Mr. Hanamji, before we bid farewell, for now, that is, in the context of the conversation, why was this something that was the responsibility of taken upon by the Old Boys Association? Why isn't this something that is part of everyday curriculum or part of the school zone initiative in the classroom on a daily basis? Why is it through a boot camp under the Old Boys Association?
Keelan, I ask myself that question all the time. As I said, this is the second year that we've hosted this. We've been talking about this program for, I would want to be honest and say, more than a decade. And I hasten to add that there are elements within the curriculum that touch on some of these subjects, of course. And as I said, all of us who go through secondary school life will understand that there are opportunities to learn, be parts of clubs, etc., and take up leadership roles. But your question is not only applicable to Queen's Royal College. I will say here this morning and join with others across the country, old and young, to say that we do need substantive and robust curriculum review, not just at the secondary level, but even in the primary and tertiary sectors. Trinidad and Tobago at one time populated the world's best and brightest minds, and we still do to a large extent. However, when you look at what passes for curriculum and this subject material, we do need to make it more relevant to today's world. And our hope is that this boot camp can actually act as a model for the Ministry of Education to start implementing across the nation. And once again, Queen's Royal College would have set a standard. And until that happens, Keelan, until the perfect happens, we have to do the good. And therefore, the PTA, the QRC, OBA, and the college administrations, we are standing in the gap to say, all right, we'll complement whatever is being done in the college with this initiative. And over time, it will integrate, that is our hope, our vision, into the what passes for everyday training as part of the curriculum, extracurricular, if you want to call it that. But we see this as part and parcel of everyday learning, and it should feature, as you rightfully say, in almost all subject areas.
Mr. Hanamji, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning, and to the Old Boys Association for the part that they're playing, the role and the responsibility that they're taking upon themselves to work with the school as well as the students. Well, thank you very much, sir, and wishing you all the very best. Looking forward to year 3.
Certainly. Take care. All the best to you and your viewers.
Thank you. That was the Secretary of the QRC Old Boys Association, Mr. Rudolph Hanamji, joining me this morning as we spoke about their transformative leadership bootcamp. It took place from August 20th to 26th, speaking about exactly what was the intended goals and how this was actually executed. And I must say, I look forward to hearing more stories like this, taking place not only from other Old Boys associations, but within the schools themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we'll begin some more conversations this morning.